All right, guys, this video is about LiveWebinar, and LiveWebinar right now is an AppSumo deal. Now, AppSumo does SaaS and software deals for entrepreneurs. Usually it's really good, well-supported software. So this is software that you'd find in the real world, not the kind of stuff that you would find on JVZoo or things like that that doesn't get supported. Now, this is actually interesting because this is the best deal of 2019. Are webinars still important? Yeah, absolutely. I think webinars have really changed the way that I've been able to do my business, because what's different about marketing now than before is more people have access to video. It's very effective platform, and you can do what I've always done, which is combine education with selling, right? So if you don't have an idea for a webinar, basically what you need to do is teach a part of your course and, or give people, some good information. The best idea is to give them more than you think that you should give them, and then you can move into a sales pitch for your course, okay? Now, if you give them good content, they're going to be open and receptive to that. So you want to think of structuring it as something where they're going to, learn 3 points, take some notes, get them to actually write down notes, and then lead them over to a webinar. But webinars are really, really effective because they allow you to communicate and not have your time locked up, which is really important. So if you plan it out, it is a project to plan out a good webinar with all the follow-up and all that stuff, but then you can get to somewhere where you have an automated income stream. So this is great. It's an alternative to ClickMeeting, Livestorm, WebinarJam, and GoToMeeting, and it's great for generating leads as well. So if you want, they'll walk you through what actually is in LiveWebinar. To be honest, most of the webinar platforms, they have the same functionality. This one has a couple of interesting things that you can do. There's a chat, and you can also communicate with private members during a team call or during a webinar event, and you're able to do some cool stuff with the virtual background. Interestingly, this also has better sharing to social channels like Facebook, which is great. And I love that you can do the emojis and things like that when you're connecting to them. You can really customize the call to action in your webinar, so you can customize the whole look and feel of it. I'm actually on WebinarJam. I've had WebinarJam since before they went to, when they were still on lifetime pricing, but I paid about $600 when they first launched, way back there, and then when they added the evergreen content, they made me pay again, and so on and so forth. But typically for a webinar platform, you're looking at paying $500, $600, or $1,000 a year for a webinar platform, and most of them have this yearly pricing because they know that it's something that's very effective. Now, that's what's really awesome about LiveWebinar, is because you can get it for $99, which is a one-time fee, and you get to use it, and I'll go through the details of that. But honestly, if you don't have a webinar or you're looking to grow your business, one of the best things is to create a webinar. And instead of being locked in with a platform where you're going to be paying, like, the lowest cost on WebinarJam is $500 a year, with this, it's very significantly less. So there's actually really good frames per second. That's all you need on a webinar. You don't need 30 frames per second, and 60 frames per second, just for those that are curious, is typically used when you record something and then want to slow it down on B-roll and you just want it buttery smooth. So that's perfectly fine for running a webinar. Now, let's look a little bit at the LiveWebinar page. If you go here, it shows you everything that it can do. They got API connections, work on all devices. It's important that things are able to work on mobile devices. And they have the whiteboard where you can, go in there and draw on the screen and really, make it more engaging, right? You want to make your webinar engaging. It's also really important that it connects to different integrations. Now, why is that important? So you can build your email list, right? So I use Aweber. Aweber actually has a free platform that you can use. I also use SendFox, so I'll put those two links in the description if you want to use one of those options to build your list. And yeah, I mean, it's just a good platform. It's solid, it works well. Here's how the codes work. You can buy one of these codes, so a single, a double, or a multiple, okay? And this is sometimes how AppSumo deals work, and you'll see the limitations here. So the room capacity of this is 100 participants. So if you're doing live webinars, that's all you would need, unless you really are, even if you're running paid ads, this is for each session. So that's probably gonna be more than enough for 99.9% of people's businesses, even if they're running paid ads. The one limitation here that you want to keep aware of is obviously one live session. The storage for recordings isn't really that much of an issue. It's the evergreen event. So an evergreen webinar is a webinar you've actually recorded and it's made to look live, right? So you basically would run your webinar a few times, learn how to tweak it, where the points are in the webinar that you want to engage with your clients or your potential customers, and then eventually turn it into an evergreen recording. So I've done this even for like affiliate products where it's not my product, but I had some good content on it and created a short webinar and moved it into an evergreen event. So I really like that. And if it were me, I would be looking at doing the $297 because you get 3 evergreen events, which should be able to get you going. You'll see that some of your webinars, you can see how that goes. The other thing about the double and the multiple is you get tracking. So that's really important for running ads, okay? Tracking, the Google Analytics is important, but dropping the pixel is even more important, and particularly with a webinar, because you can drop different varieties of pixels with these webinar platforms and also with LiveWebinar. So what does that mean? Well, that means you can drop a certain pixel if they showed up. So you can have a different ad sequence for people that have registered for the webinar but not showed up. And then you have a different sequence for people that have shown up to the webinar but did not get to the part of the webinar where you start to pitch. And then you have a different set of ads that would run to the participants that have gotten to the part where you started to make your sales pitch. And you can see how ideally you want to have different messages going out in your marketing for that. Now, what I use to actually drop pixels for a lot of things, and this is just a tip, is there is a company called Linkalytics. And you can basically create a link, and instead of sharing your normal link on, let's say, Facebook or whatever, you can put your link in here and then you can add pixels to that link. So even when people click on things in your Facebook newsfeed, you can start building them and putting them on a retargeting list, which is really, really powerful. But because of that, I would consider doing either the double or the multiple because obviously if you've gone through the work of getting someone to a webinar, you want to follow up with them properly and have that segmentation. And LiveWebinar allows you to do that, to have that segmentation for how much they've engaged with the webinar, how much they've consumed of your content. So anyhow, you never know how long AppSumo deals are going to last, but I would certainly buy this. If you don't have a webinar platform, it's a really, really good deal. If you have any questions about that, or you need help setting up your webinar or turning your maybe online course and building a live webinar in front of that, that's something you can contact me about. I do private coaching, and I'd be more than happy to help you do that. I love just kind of helping getting the tech hurdle out of the way so people can just get their business going and focus on what they're good at. That out of the way, AppSumo is a great place for finding deals like this. But if you don't have a webinar service, you're not going to find something at this price. AppSumo does some good negotiating to get these deals for you. So this is a great place to get a webinar service. All right, any comments? Hit me up in the comments and I will get back with you. That's all for this video.